Hello, it's time for the Hebrew of the Week. We are continuing on in Psalm 19. Today we want to do verses 3 and 4. But quickly, let's review what we did last week with Psalm 19, 1 and 2. So here's last week. The skies are writing the glory of God, and the firmament is telling the work of his hands. Day to day utters speech, notice Omer, speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. So that's what we said. So day is uttering speech. Day to day is uttering Omer. So let's go on to the next verse. Ein Omer, there's Omer. Ein Omer v'ein davarim. Bali nishma kolam. So there is not speech and there is not words. So, basically it's saying, all right, metaphorically speaking, day to day brings forth speech, but it's not literal. I mean, if I went out in the morning and I heard the sun say, well, hi, Ken, how you doing? You should probably have me see somebody because I probably need help. The moon doesn't say, oh, Ken, you're looking nice tonight. So we get what it's saying, right? Day to day pours forth speech. Well, I mean, not literally. There is no sounds. There are no words, okay? I mean, I'm not saying that. Ein is the negative particle, as it were. There is not, or there are no. And it kind of sounds like ain't, doesn't it? Ein, ain't. So that's easy to remember. There is actually a positive particle too. Yesh, there is. Yesh means there is. So yesh, there is. Ein, there ain't. So there is no speech and there is no davarim. Davarim is words. Hirak Yod Mem is the masculine plural absolute ending. So davar is word, and then davarim is words. All right. So we got that. Now, this next part, Bali nishma kolam, is the rest of verse 3. So Bali is another word for not. Now, in beginning Hebrew, they teach you lo as the word for not, lamed aleph. This is a much less frequently used word for not. I don't know enough about the evolution of Hebrew as a language to say whether Bali is a later word for not. I think it's found somewhere in Isaiah. I'm not sure where in Isaiah. That kind of messes with my theory a little bit, but I've wondered if Bali is mostly in the writings, which tends to have reached its mature form, the latest of all of the Old Testament, I would suspect. Although, again, that's my amateurish thought here. So, not nishma. So, Shema is here, hear, O Israel. Shema, O Israel. Yisrael. This nun, I think, is the N of the nifal, or the N stem. The N stem is the passive stem. So this is perfect. It's third masculine singular. It's a nifal. Is heard. So it's not their voice hears. It's their voice is heard. Is what it says. And kolam is their voice. So mem means there, and kol means voice. So day to day pours forth speech, but I mean, there is no actual sound and there is no actual words. It's not that we're hearing their voice, but still, in all the earth goes out their voice. or is it? This period should not be here. Let me do a very quick pause to get rid of that period. Okay, now we're ready. Bakol haaretz yatsa kavam. So ba is in, kol is all, ha is the, eretz is land. So in all the land, yatsa, this is a straightforward G or call, perfect third masculine singular from yatsa. Now, here's an interesting thing here, kavam, or is it kolam? There aren't a lot of textual variants that we talk about in the Old Testament. Part of the difference is we have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. And so there are just a whole lot more variations that you can talk about. But we don't have nearly that many manuscripts of the Old Testament. And until the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the late 1940s, almost all of the Hebrew manuscripts we had dated from the Middle Ages, the Masoretic text of the 900s, and so forth. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and the Dead Sea Scrolls very, very largely agree with the Masoretic text, but there are a few notable places, few very interesting places where the Dead Sea Scrolls actually give a different reading than the Masoretic text does. And in this case, this is one of them. So the Dead Sea Scrolls have kolam, like here, their voice, instead of kavam. I remember growing up on the King James, and it says their line has gone out in all the earth, and I'm like, what in the world does that mean? It makes a whole lot more sense in the context to say that their voice has gone out in all the land. That just fits. We're going to talk about voice and speech, and we're going to talk about utterance in the next line. So it just makes more sense. And interestingly enough, the Greek Septuagint, which dates back to around the time of Jesus as well and beyond, also has their voice. So we have internal evidence. We have voice, 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 line. Voice fits the context internally better, and then external evidence, the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint have their voice. So I think it's my thought is it's much more likely that what it said originally was their voice in all the earth went out. So again, we're saying the same things a number of times. By the way, the Hebrew poetry uses parallelism. It doesn't rhyme sound so much, but it rhymes thoughts. So this is what's called synonymous parallelism. There is no speech. There are no words. Say it again. Say it again. That's synonymous parallelism. But we've said the day-to-day pours forth speech, but it's not literal speech. It's not literal words. Their voice is not really heard. But at the same time, in all the land, their voice went out. And in the end of the world, Milihem, their utterance was in all the end of the world. So it goes back and forth. It pours forth speech, but it's not really speech. But it goes out into all the end of the world, and their utterance to the end of the world, and their voice to the end of the land. These are synonymous statements again. Here we have aretz, which is land, and here we have tevel, which is another word for world. Tevel, again, is a less frequently known word, but it has a sense of the inhabited world. So Eretz is more the land itself, the earth, but they're roughly synonymous. So you have voice and you have utterance. To me, it's not even a close call. It probably originally said their voice went out into all the land, and to the end of the world, their utterance. So the end of the world is like all of the land. Again, they are roughly synonymous. There are some people who are very detailed. They're like, well, these aren't the same. I'm sorry. It's the same. Roughly the same. It's in poetry. It's the same. Deal with it. So in all the land, their voice went out. In all the world, their utterance. Milihem. So mili is, again, a lesser known word for voice. He's running out of synonyms. And then hem is their utterance. And then finally, Lashemesh, Sham, Ohel, Bahem. So for the sun, La is for, Patak doubling is the hay's been popped out like a pimple. Sorry. That's all that's left of the hay. What the hay? The Patak and the doubling. Shemesh is sun. To the sun, there, Sham is there. Ohel is a tent. I'm not cussing. Ohel means tent. Behem, in them. So basically, there's a tent for the sun at the ends of the world. Their voice goes as far as the tent that the sun goes into every night. Well, here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. Do 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 do. And then it goes into its tent at night. We're speaking metaphorically, of course. But there you have it. Isn't this beautiful? Psalm 19, 3 and 4. The previous verse says, day to day pours forth speech, but of course, there is no speech. There are no words. Their voice is not heard, but their voice goes out into all the land, and to the end of the world is their utterance, that place where for the sun there is a tent in it, or in them, in the ends. I think it's referring to the ends probably. All right, well, this has been the Hebrew of the Week.